Okay, so I hope that everyone is listening, and you should be able to watch the demonstration that I will show you today regarding our topic. The topic that we will cover is more on the file input output operation in Python. Okay, so we will understand how to open a file, how to read from a file, how to write into a file, and how to close a file, no? And the different methods associated with the file methods of the file input output in Python. Okay, and also I am going to discuss later on some introduction about the graphical user interface, and we're going to use the PyQt, which is available in Python. And in case that this module of the Python, which is PyQt5, okay, is not installed in your system, so you'll have to install it, and it's very straightforward and easy to install. Okay, and later I'm going to show you how. Okay, so let's try to understand about files first. Okay, so basically files are named locations on disk to store related information, no? And they are used to permanently store data in a non-volatile memory. Okay, so for example, hard disk, flash drives, etc. The random access memory is a volatile memory, which means we lose the data whenever the computer is turned off, no? So definitely we use files for future use of the data by permanently storing them. And if we want to read from a write or write to a file, we need to open it first, of course, no? So, and when we are done doing something on the file, it needs to be closed so that the resources that are tied with the file are freed, no? Because whenever we open a file, some resources, for example memory and CPU, are used, no, as resources to definitely open, edit, and do something on the file. And we need to close it so that the resources that are tied with the file are freed. Okay, so the file operation of the Python takes place in the following order, no? First we need to open the file. Okay, we need to open the file, and then we do something on the file, like we read or we write, no? These are the operations, common operations involving the file, no, that we have opened. And afterwards, after we are done with the read and write operation, we close the file so that the resources that are involved in the file that was opened will be freed. Okay, now how do we open a file in Python? No? We use the function open, and this is the open and close parentheses, which means that's a function, and this is a function to open a file, no? And this function returns a file object, no? And it's also called a handle, okay, as it is used to read or modify the file accordingly. Now when we open a file from a current directory, which means since the directory of my you can see from the local host of my notebook Jupyter, it is saved, and we can find it from the we can find it from my documents, and then there is a folder here called CPE009, object-oriented programming mode, and then I have another folder here, the module, and then inside that module is the notebook. Okay, so this is module 5 notebook. So actually this notebook is opened, okay, this Jupyter notebook is open in this current directory. So right now I'm accessing the current directory, which is in my documents, and then I have a folder inside that, CPE009 dash object-oriented programming. Okay, and inside that I have the file. Now suppose we have to open a file in this current directory. If we try to run this one, we will have an error. Why? Because maybe there is no file that is named test. Okay, for example, I will change the name of the text. For example, sample text. So for example, this is the name of the text that I will try to open. Okay, so using a handle, this is a variable that we associate with opening the file. We call it a handle. We equate it with the open function. So inside the parameter, if we will try to shift and tab, you will see the different parameters associated, or the arguments associated with the open function. Okay, so from here you will also see that the document string, this function states that we are opening a file and return a stream. Okay, and it will raise an error, operating system error, upon failure. That means if the file that we are trying to open is not available, which means wala doon yung file, so the operating system will actually the Python will show an operating system error that the file is not in the directory. So let's try to run this so that you will know what type of file or what type of error we will encounter if the file associated with this is not available. So you see, this is a file not found error. Okay, this is the code, error number 2, which means that there is no such file or directory that includes sample text.txt. Okay, but in case that there is a file, okay, for example, I will show you. So let me stop sharing the screen, and I will try to share the entire screen for you, so that you will see every time I will open a. Okay, now that we are here, so let's try to open my directory, which is in my documents. I have this CPE009 folder, and inside this, you will notice that there are plenty of files. This is the file that we open, the module number, module 5 notebook, which is a Python notebook. Okay, so here I have a text file here, which the name of the file is test. So let's try to create another file, okay, another text file. So, and I will name it as sample. Okay, so this sample, I will write something here. So welcome to file input output in Python. Okay, and then I will also write another I hope you are listening and watching the demo. Okay, and I hope you will learn from this. Alright, for example, this is the contents of the notebook, the notepad, which is save as sample.txt, and then I'm going to save it, and I will close it, and then we will go back to our program here. So if there is a file associated with it, it will be opened. However, if in case that the file is not present, as an example, sample.txt is not in the current directory, it will give us a file not found error. So let's try to insert another cell below, and let's try to copy this and then paste it here, and I will change the name of the file because we already have a sample.txt, no? In sample.txt, okay, when we try to to uh, to run this or execute this one, we will see that there is no error. No, there is no error. And if we type F, okay, and execute the command, you will see that this is the name of the file, which is sample.txt, and the mode that was used is R. No, so you can see from here the modes using shift tab. Okay, from below you will see the different modes, no, in opening the file. No, R means to open for reading, W means open for writing, X means to create a new file and open it for writing, and then open for writing is A, or append. Okay, and then B is for binary mode, T is for text mode, plus is for opening a disk file for updating, reading and writing, and capital U will be used to universal new line mode, which is deprecated. So there are many things that you need to understand here. So if I were you, I'm going to read this so that I will have an idea of the different modes and the different arguments associated with the open function, no, the open file function, which is this one. No, so you can see that the encoding is coded as CP1252. I don't know what it is, but definitely this is the type of encoding used for this particular text. So this is how we open a file in a current directory. Okay, but if the file that you are trying to open is not located, for example, it's not located on the current directory, you will have to write the whole directory. Now, for example, inside my drive C, I have here some text file. No, the name of the text file is eula.1028, etc., etc. You can see from my drive C, there are plenty of text pad here. No, so let's try to open. For example, we can try to open that in drive C. So we can change this, and we can enter the name of the file, which is eula.1028. Okay, and then we can change the name, no, the handle. So that is the file. And then when we try to open the file, we can see now that the directory of the file is given here, which is C:_ this is backslash, okay, or this is slash, sorry, eula.1028.txt, no? And the mode is also to read the file. No? So basically we can specify the mode if we try to open a file. So if we want to read, write, or append a certain file, we can specify the different mode. No, we can also specify if we want to open the file in text mode or sometimes in binary mode. No, I guess you have already learned this in your C language. No, but the default, for example, if you did not include a mode, no, in opening a file, the default is reading in text mode. No, and in this mode we get the strings when reading from the file. And on the other hand, binary mode returns bytes, because binary modes cannot be read. Okay, it's presented in zeros and ones, and this is the mode to be used when dealing with non-text files like images or executable file. No, commonly we use the Python. No, in some cases we open file. Okay, in opening some files we use other importation tool to be able to open the file. But definitely, so that you will not be confused, this is the basic syntax on how we can open a file. Okay, so these are some of the mode descriptions. I already mentioned this. Okay, so R, W, X, A, T, B plus, and then there's also capital U. So let's try to open this. Okay, so you can see that this is the first line here that we will see is to open the test.txt file. Okay, and this is equivalent to the mode of R or RT. Okay, and then the second line appears that we are now in the writing mode. No, W means writing mode, but the file here associated is image.bmp. Suppose that we have an image, no, and we want to read and write this image using the binary mode. We can use R plus B mode. Okay, but unlike any other languages, the character A does not imply the number 97, no, until it is encoded using the ASCII or other equivalent encodings. No, moreover, the default encoding is the CP1252, but UTF-8, this is associated in the default of the Linux operating system. Okay, so we must not also rely on the default encoding, or else our code will behave differently in different platforms. So sometimes we need to identify which platform we're going to use. For Windows, we are using CP1252, but for Linux, we are using UTF-8. Okay, so when we are working with files in the text mode, it is highly recommended to specify the encoding type. Now, for example, in this case, we are opening the test.txt, and the mode is R, reading, okay, and the encoding is UTF-8. Okay, when we try to open the file, some of the resources are being used. Okay, now when we are done with performing operations on the file, we need to properly close the file. Now, closing a file will free up the resources that are tied with the file. No, it's done using the closed function method available in Python. No? And Python has a garbage collector. And what is this garbage collector? It is the function of this is to clean up unreferenced objects, no? But we must not rely on it to close the file. So let's say we have opened a file. The function to close it is just this one. No? F for the handle, okay, that we use to open the file, test.txt. So if you want to close the file, we just use the handle f.close. And if we try to go inside, so you will see here that this function is used to flush and close the input-output object. No? And this method has no effect if the file is already closed. So definitely this will not take effect until if the file is open. Okay, now let's try to execute this one. So you can see that if you open and close this one, and we try to insert another cell below, and we try to show, okay, the F, which is the handle. So you can see here the file is still there. No, okay, we have already closed it, but the file is still there associated with the opened file. No? But this method is not entirely safe. No, as you can see, there is still a file that is opened. Okay, and if an exception occurs when we are performing some operation with the file, the code exits without closing the file. No? And a safer way to use this is to use the try and finally block. Now, how do we do that? So try is a keyword in Python. Okay, let's try to open the file. This means that we are performing the file operation to open the file, which is test.txt. So imagine that we have the test here. No, inside this we have the test, this one. No, this is my first file and this is a test. All right, so this is the file. So inside that we would try to do another operation, which is to close. Finally, we will try to close the file. Okay, let's try to do that. Execute it. So this way we are guaranteeing that the file is properly closed. Even if an exception is raised, that will cause program flow to stop, no? And the best way to close a file is by using with the with statement. This ensures that the file is closed when the block inside the with statement is exited. No, we don't need to explicitly call the close method. It's done internally actually. Okay, so this one is used to open the file. So with the use of with method, okay, with open, okay, as f. Okay, it's basically the same as this one, no? We're trying to open this one. Now, how to write files in Python? For example, in order to write into a file in Python, we need to open it in write or W mode, no? Append is for A, or exclusive creation, which is X. So we need to be careful with the W mode, because if we use the write mode, it will overwrite into the file if it already exists, no? Like in this case, if we try to use the sample, we already have this file and we already have this inside the file, right? So we have this. If we try to do that here, no? Let's say we try to open the sample.txt, and the mode that we are going to use is W, and we will use it for handle F. Okay, so if we try to write something inside, no? So we use the function write. Okay, so this is the function that we use, no? The write function method. This write function method should be associated with the handle, or this one that we place inside in opening our file, and then the write function follows, and inside that is the string of the file, is the string that you want to put inside your file. Okay, so you can see that there is a \n here, indicating that there should be another line following this function, no? Let's say, so let's try to write something here. So I am writing here that for example, hello students of OOP. Okay, and then okay, let's just say that the second line will be composed of this file, and the third line will be contains 3 lines. So if we try to do this, okay, remember that the sample, that file has a file like this, no? So it is mentioned earlier that we need to be careful with the W mode, no? We're using the write mode here, no? Because it will overwrite into the file if it already exists, no? And the file already exists. So this program that we write here will try to create a new file named sample.txt, and since it's already existing in the current directory, it will overwrite the existing file. Okay, so here it says that we need to include the new line character ourselves so that we can distinguish the different lines. So we are writing here 3 lines of codes, or 3 lines of sentences in the string form inside our notepad, no? The sample.txt. So remember that the sample.txt contains this, no? This strings. Okay, so let's try to open this one or execute this one. So now that we have executed it, if we try now to open the file sample, so you can see here that the file now is written as hello students of OOP, the one that we have changed, and then this file. And why do we have another space here? Because in the original code that you can see, we have double \n, or double line. If you want to enter more lines, you can add additional \n. Okay, so we need to include new line characters so that it will distinguish the different lines. Now that we have created this, we need to read the file, right? And we don't want to read the file by opening it from the directory and clicking on the notebook or the notepad. Okay, so what we are going to do is to read the file using the Python. Now, to read the file in Python, we must open the file in the reading mode. Okay, and there are various methods available for this purpose. We can use the read size, okay, method to read in the size number of the data if the size parameter is not specified. So it reads and returns up to the end of the file, and we can read the text that, oh, by the way, we changed this, no, we are not using the text.txt file, but the sample.txt file that we are using, no? How do we do that? So if we try to open the sample.txt, okay, let's try to change this sample.txt, and we're using the mode read. So we can definitely read the first 4 data, okay, the first 4 data, no? Okay, so this, okay, so you can see sample.txt. Actually, we are reading actually what? So this is the second line already, no? So, but definitely we will have to use the sample.txt. Okay, let's try to open that. We have opened that, and then we try to read this, no? So let's try to remove this, okay, and let's try to you see that we already now have the correct version, no? So in case that you want to read more, so let's say we put 10 characters here. Okay, you can see that hello stud, okay, this is the first 10 characters including the space, no? And if you want to read more, 20 for example, you will see that hello students of OO. So that means we need 21 to be able to read the first line. Okay, now another thing here, okay, so we can remove this one. You can see that if we try to read more, okay, it has read the \n, which is the new line. Now it counts as a new character, and plus the second line, which is this one, right? So this is the second line, the THI, no, THI. So definitely these are all the things that we are going to read, no? And if we read more, okay, if we read more and we did not put something here, that means we are actually reading all the contents of the file, no? We are actually reading all the contents of the file. And if there's nothing more, no, nothing more, further reading returns empty string, no, such as this. So dahil nabasa na natin lahat dito in our third run, okay, this is the first run, second run, and the third run. Now that we read everything, if we try to read more on the strings, if there is nothing more to read, it will read and it will return an empty string for us, no? So we can see that the read method returns a new line as \n, and once the end of the file is reached, we get an empty string on further reading. Now we can change our current file cursor position using the seek method and also the tell method, no, which returns our current position in number of bytes. Now for example, f.tell, so this is the current position, no, and if we try to seek and we try to bring the cursor to our initial position, which is 0, no, the initial position will always be 0. Okay, so if we try to read again and print this one, we can see the file inside our notepad, which is hello students of OOP. This file and then blank line contains 3 lines. Another way is by reading a file line by line using a for loop, no? Sometimes we can use for loop, and this is both efficient and fast, no, in terms of reading, no? And we do that by opening the file. So let's try to use sample.txt, and then we use the for loop, no, using another variable here that we will use, an iteratable variable. Okay, we will use it to loop in our handle, no, which is f. Okay, and then we are going to print the line. Okay, so these are the lines that are looping inside our handle, and we will end using the empty string. So that means when it sees that the this function, no, when Python sees an empty string, it will end the printing. Okay, so let's try to run this, and you will see that, hello students of OOP, this file contains 3 lines. Okay, so this is faster than doing this one, no? Okay, so if in case that you have plenty of text, for example, no, so let's try to open this and have an example. So earlier we created a we opened the file, which is this one, no, this one. We tried to open this. Let's try to see what's inside this file without opening the notebook. And this time we're opening it using a for loop line, no? So let's try to use this, and let's just copy this one, and then let's paste it here. Okay, so for line in G, so we need to change the handle because G is used to open this file here, no? So let's try to see what's inside this. So you can see here that this is these are the contents of the file. Okay, so this is a user agreement, no? The EULA means user agreement. So this is where we read everything from the file, no? So these are the contents. So everything now will be written and will be shown because we have used it to print all the lines in our file. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. Now there are plenty of Python file methods associated with opening a file, reading a file, editing a file, appending a file, etc. Okay, and some of them have been used in the above examples, no, in the examples that we have given. But here is the complete list of methods in text mode with a brief description. Okay, so you can see from here, from this notebook, we can also use the close method, the detach, file number, flush. So it's up to you if you want to try all of this. Okay, I will not discuss everything about here, but definitely these are some of the methods, and it follows the description of each method, no? Like the readable, read line, seek, tell, truncate, writable, write, and write lines. Now let's proceed with Python directory, no? If there are a large number of files to handle in our Python program, we can arrange our code within different directories to make things more manageable, no? And a directory or folder is a collection of files and subdirectories. And Python has the operating system module, we call it the OS, that provides us with many useful methods to work with directories and files as well, no? So let's say we are working in this directory, no? So I mentioned a while ago that I am here in my documents. Inside my document I have a folder called CPE 009- object-oriented programming, no? So we can use the import function, import OS, which means operating system, and then we use the get current working directory. CWD means current working directory. So this is a function. You can see from here that this is a function that we can use to be able to know where are we, no? Where are we in inside my directory, no? So if I try to run that, you will see that this is my current directory. It was printed here. Okay, so you can see here that, however, the format is different, no? So if you try to use this one, and you can see that there is only a single slash, no, single slash here. So this is my current directory. But here you will see that there is a double slash for every folder. I am now in the users, and the user is JBTai, that's me, and then inside that user folder is the documents, and then the CPE dash object oriented programming. So this is the current working directory, and there's another way to do that. So we can use the OS get current directory B. And what is this B? So this will allow us to get the associated directory for this function, no? So we can use this also. So you can see that there is a B. So you can copy this one, no? For example, if you want to open a file, okay, inside this directory. So if you are working in another directory, and if you want to access this directory, you can get the current directory of the working directory. Now the extra backslash implies an escape sequence, no? So if you want to render this one properly, so you can just print and then OS get CW function. So when you try to enter this, you will have this as the proper rendering of the directory, because this one has a double slash, no? Double backslash. Okay, now if you want to change the directory, you can also do that by using the chdir function method. Okay, so definitely the new path that we want to change into must be supplied as a string to this method. Now for example, we are in the current directory, and if you want to go to another directory, let's say I have in my drive C, I have a Python folder here called Python 39. So if I want to go there, I will just use the OS, no, that we imported. This is a module to be used for changing the directory. So we use the chdir, and then inside it is the name of the strings. Okay, and the name of the string should be the path, no? The path elements, no? For the directory that you wish to go into. Okay, so when we try to do that, and then we try to print, we will notice now that we are now already here, no? So if we try to enter this once again, and just copy this one, and if we get the current directory, we will be a string will be returned implying that we are in drive C in Python 39 folder. Now if you want to list all the directories and the files, no, inside your directory, you can use OS and the function list directory. So what are the contents of Python 39? So these are the contents, no? We have plenty of folders, and then we have a couple of text document, and then some of the files are application extensions, etc. So definitely this is a Python folder that you see. So these are the Python folder, no, that you can see, and these are the files inside it, and we list the directory by using OS list directory. Okay, so if I add something here, okay, for example, we are here, right? So if I add another file, say a text document, and the name of the document is OOP, for example, no? So you can see if we try to rerun the list directory, you will see now the OOP, that text that we have created. All right? Now, how to make a new directory? Now, making a new directory is just like creating a new folder, you know, inside our directory. So you use the mkdir function, no? And then the name of the folder or the directory that you would like to create, no? For example, in the current directory that we are working with, no, since we are here inside the Python 39, if we make a folder called test, now let's make it capitalized. Okay, so you will notice that inside here there is no test folder, right? So if you try to execute this and then list all the directories, you will see here that the test here is now created, no? So seeing from the file here, you will see that this is the folder that we have created, no? The test folder, this one. This is the test folder. Right? Now, you can also rename a directory or a folder or a file, no? And in this case, the test, okay, we can rename it like, for example, OOP test. Okay, so we can rename it like this, no? Using the function rename, no? Again, we're using the OS module and rename function. Inside it, there are two parameters. The first one is the original name of the folder or the directory, and the second one is the name that we would like to change, no? The name of the directory. Okay, so let's try to execute this and let's try to list again the directory. You will see here that where is that? So it should be OOP. Yeah, this one. Okay, OOP test. Now looking at this, you will not see anymore the test but the OOP test folder that was created. Okay? Now how do we delete or how do we remove? So we can use the remove or RMDIR function so that we can delete the file, no? So let's say OOP test, we want to delete the folder, so we can delete that and then list again the directory. We will no longer see the OOP test. So from here you will see that there is no longer a folder called test OOP because we have already deleted. In case that you're trying to delete something, no, and you try to execute this once again, it will create an error, no? Magkakaroon siya ng error dito because we already deleted the file, no? So let's try to run and you will see that there is a file not found error because we already deleted the file, no? We can no longer remove the file if the file is not existing. Okay, so there was an error already here. So if you try to list the directory, it will be the same. There is no file such as OOP test. But if you would like to create the same directory, definitely this will work, no? Now let's try to talk about Python errors and built-in exceptions. So what are these? So these are sometimes we do mistakes, no, while writing a program that leads to errors when we try to run it, no? And the most common error that we have is the syntax error, no? That means there is an error in our syntax. So that means it's like when we are talking, we sometimes do some wrong grammar, something like that, no? And it will be and if we hear someone talking in a mode that has wrong grammars, for example, it's very hard to understand because the grammar is wrong, no? But at least we can understand it. However, in Python, if there is a syntax error or a grammar error, no, we call it grammar error in a language, but in Python we call it syntax error, no? So these are the errors that are caused by not following the proper structure or the syntax of the language, no? So this will be called syntax error or parsing error. So a simple wrong code, for example, will definitely mean a syntax error. For example, if you're using a for loop and you forget the colon, it will create a syntax error, no? So in this example, we have an if statement here. So it says that there is an invalid syntax here, no? And what is the syntax error? The syntax error here is that we forgot to put a colon, no? Okay? Okay? aside from a name error here, okay, so definitely that is what we call logical error, no, or an exception, because we failed to give a name, no. But for example, if we have a is equal to 1, okay, and then we entered it, it will run properly. Now from the example, okay, the arrow, you can see here the arrow indicates where the parser ran into the syntax error, no, which is the colon, no. It's the missing element in the if statement, no. We also have logical errors, or called the exceptions, no. So this is very important to remember. So when we have exceptions in Python, we call it logical errors, no. Logical errors are different from syntax error, okay, remember that. Okay, so errors that occur, for example, no, another form of syntax error is this one, no? If you try to open this one and insert another cell below and paste this one, like for example, you miss something here, like for example, list disk. What is the error? The error will be an attribute error, no, related to the module OS, which has no attribute list directory, no. But this one is a list directory, no. But for example, if we miss something here, no, like for example, we forgot to put another closing parenthesis, no, so this will be a syntax error, no. So you can see that unexpected end of file EOF while parsing, which means nakita niya, Python saw that there is something missing here, no, which is the actually this one, no, the closing parenthesis. So this is an example of a syntax error. But the Python logical error, no, these are the errors that occur or happen at runtime, no, after passing the syntax test. So bago magkaroon ng logical error, ang una mo nang chine-check ni Python ay syntax error. Kapag nakapasa na, that means magra-run na yung program, there will be some logical errors, no? And these are called exceptions or logical errors. For instance, it happens when we try to open a file for reading, no, but the file does not exist. So itong error na to nakita natin kanina, the file not found error. So if you remember, this is the file not found error. This is what we call a logical error, no, or an exception. Why? Because according to the test, it has passed the syntax error test, but definitely it did not run properly because of the logical error that was the result of this, no, as you can see. Now, getting back, okay, so if the file does not exist, it will create a file not found error, and that will be associated to an exception, no. So if you try to divide a number by 0, for example, no, that it will be called zero division error. This is an example of that. Now, 1 divided by 0 is equal to 0. Is equal to zero division error, sorry. Okay? And whenever these types of runtime error occurs, okay, Python creates an exception object. No? Now, another error is the import error. For example, we want to use OS, no? OS that make directory, but we forgot to import the OS module, so it will return an import error. So you have to be familiar with the different errors, logical errors, or the exceptions, no? And whenever these types of runtime error happens, Python creates an exception object, no? If not handled properly, it prints a traceback to that error along with some details about what error occurred, no? So let's see. So let's try to open an imaginary text in our current directory. Okay, so you will see here a file not found error. This is a logical error, and this is the traceback, no? The traceback that is mentioned here, this it will print the traceback to that error. So you will see an error indicating what is the error, no? So right here, the error is division by 0, and here the error is no such file or directory called imaginary.txt. Okay. Now there are also some built-in exceptions. No, illegal operations can raise exceptions, and there are plenty of built-in exceptions in Python that are raised when corresponding errors happen. And we can view all the built-in exceptions using the built-in function as follows. No, yeah, this one is to print the current directory, the locals, and then the built-ins. Okay, so we try to print all those exceptions. So these are all the common exceptions. No, so dyan makikita natin halos lahat ng logical error that we can see. No, module not found error, name error, file exist error, file not found error, etc., etc., attribute error, assertion error. So it's up to you to find out and learn more about this. No, so definitely the code above will return a module of built-in exceptions, functions, and attributes. No, and it allows us to list these attributes as string. No, and naka-string siya lahat. Now, some of the common built-in exceptions in Python are the following. So these are the following: exception cause of error, assertion error, etc. So ang dami niyan, no? I cannot tell everything because of time constraint. But definitely this will be you will encounter all of this when you are trying to do. No. Now, how do we avoid? No. How do we avoid exception errors? No. So we can handle this built-in and user-defined exceptions in Python using the try, except, and finally. I introduced to you a while ago about this. No, we have created an example of try and then except and finally statements. So Python has many built-in exceptions. So whenever you encounter an error, no, and when these exceptions happen, the Python interpreter stops the current process and passes it to the calling process until it is handled. But if not handled, the program will crash. For example, let's consider a program where we have a function A that calls function B, which in turn calls function C. If an exception occurs in function C but is not handled in C, the exception passes to B and then to A. If never handled, an error message is displayed and our program comes to sudden and unexpected halt. Okay? Now, catching exceptions in Python, that means we can do exceptions. No, we can handle exception using a try statement. So this is important. No, and the critical operation which can raise an exception is placed inside the try clause, and the code that handles the exceptions is written in the except clause. So remember this. What do you write inside the try clause? You write the raised exception. Okay, the critical operation which can raise as an exception, and then what do we write in the except clause? We write the code that handles the exception. So that means we try this, okay, and then we do the except. If the try does not succeed, we do the except. Okay, so let's try to use an example to be able to accomplish that and to explain that. So we can choose what operations to perform once we have caught the exception. Let's say we import the module sys or system to get the type of the exception. Okay, and then we have a random list here. We have a character, and then we have 0 and 2. This is a list, right? And then we try to loop inside that list. Okay, so while looping inside, now there will be some error. Why? Because the contents of the list has different data inside. No, we have a character here and we have 2 integers here, right? So definitely we now try to print the entry is, so this is just a title, but we put here r will be equal to 1 over the integer which is the entry, and then we use the break function to break to that try block. Okay, now inside the except, what do we write? We write here the exception that has happened, no? So we write here the sys that the information of the information of the error that was found, no? And then it will print the next entry, which is this one, no? The reciprocal of the entry is R. Okay, so you can see from here, so these are all the possible values, no? Maglo-loop siya kay 0. So pag nag-loop, ay maglo-loop siya kay character A muna. Pag nag-loop siya kay character A, ang sasabihin niya, the entry is oops. Sasabihin niya oops. So that's except. So that means ito hindi na siya nagkaroon ng error dito, no? Hindi niya ginawa tong try na to, no? Bakit? Because of the exception that we cannot use this, no, to print the looping, no, for this matter. Okay, to be able to understand that, let's try to copy this and let's create a new cell below. Okay, you can see here, okay, if we have a random list, right, and we try to loop using entry. Okay, so kung wala tong try na to, okay, and then wala tong break na to, and also wala tong except na to, okay, what will happen? So you will see that there is an exception error here, which is a value error. That means we cannot loop on the character. So to prevent this from happening, we use this try. Okay, we use this try and except method, that if this will not succeed, ito gagawin natin. Okay, so we will just do the next looping, no, on the O. However, sa O pa rin, since kinukuha natin yung 1 over the entry, yung loop natin, 1 divided by 0 will be a 0 division error. So error pa din, no, error pa din, hindi pa rin siya magpo-proceed. Like in this case, sa umpisa pa lang hindi na siya nag-proceed, di ba? Hindi na siya nag-proceed. Okay, di lalo na doon sa pangalawa, hindi na siya nag-proceed. But if we have, for example, in this case, no, tanggalin natin si character A, ano makikita niyo, ano na, ito na yung naging ano niya, sorry, ito pala yun. Ito pala yung magiging error natin. Yan. Yan, nakita natin that the entry is 0, but there is an exception error, 0 division error, no? Meaning, hindi pa rin siya tutuloy na mag-loop sa 2. Bakit? Dahil there is an exception error at hindi niya na-handle. Okay? Because wala tayong try and except. So definitely magagawa natin, no? So this is a variation of that, no? So let's try to put this character here. Okay? So this is our original code. But you will notice that the try did not change, but in the exception, no, this is another way to do it, no. We can write a base exception class. Okay, this is a base exception class wherein we can also perform the above task in the following way, no. So this is the class that we created, no, except exception as E. So we are creating a base class called exception as, or that means we are referring it as E. Okay, and then we include that to perform what type of class will the exception be. Okay, and it will say that when we try to run this, so that the exception class will be value error and the 0 division error. There are many ways to do this, no, and you can also do that in your programming. If it creates, no, in your program it creates a different exception error, you can try to remove that by using the try and except, okay, block methods. Okay, so in the above example we did not mention any specific exception in the except clause, and this is not a good programming practice, no, because it will catch all exceptions and handle every case in the same way. So I think we can specify which exceptions an except clause should catch. So a try clause can have any number of except clauses to handle different exceptions. However, only one will be executed in case an exception happen. So what do we do now? So what we do is to use a tuple of values to specify multiple exceptions in an except clause. And here's an example code, no? For example, we have a try and except here. Okay, and then inside the except function, we use a tuple. This is a tuple, okay, which will handle the multiple exceptions, no, in type error and zero division error. Okay, so these are just pseudocode. Now we also have what we call raising exceptions in Python. No? In Python programming, exceptions are raised when errors happen at runtime. No? We can also manually raise exceptions using the raise keyword. No? So we can use the raise keyboard interrupt. No? Like in this case, if we run this one, it will raise keyboard interrupt. Raise memory error, it will say that this is a memory error. Okay, so you will notice that the string that we write here will be the name of the error. No, in this case, like in this example, there is a try and except. No, so here we are accepting an input from a user. No, so if the input is less than or equal to 0, it will raise a value. Oh, that is not positive number. Okay, but except we use the value error as VE. No, you remember this one? If you try to remember this, this is how we can use a base exception class. Okay, this is a base exception class, the value error. Okay, and we include that as VE. So what is the value error that we will see now? So when we try to run this one, like for example, if A is less than or equal to 0, so let's say equal na lang sa 0, so let's put a 0 here, so it will tell us that that is not a positive number. So that is the value error. That is not a positive error. Okay, so but if we put something here, like for example, if we put here 2, so the number will be correctly printed. Okay, because it's 2. So another example, if we have -5, for example, so that is not a positive number. So it will print that is not a positive number because that is the value that we have raised. So definitely magagamit natin to in programming. No? Python try with else clause, meron din tayo niyan. In some situation, you might want to run a certain block of code. If the code block inside try run without any errors. Now for these cases, you can use the optional else keyword with the try statement. No? Exceptions in the else clause are not handled by the preceding except clauses. So let's take a look at an example. So we have try here, and then we are asking an input from the user. So definitely this program will try to print the reciprocal of even numbers. So what happens if not even numbers yung binigay ng user? So it will print not an even number. Okay, but we are using this. Okay, we're using an exception here. Okay, to exception, this is the exception that we use here to print that the number that was given by the user is not an even number. Else, okay, if it is an even number, it will try to create the reciprocal and print the reciprocal of that number. So let's try to enter this to execute. No, so if the number is divided by 2 and the result is 0, that means that is even number, right? So what happens if we put an odd number here, like 5? So it will say not an even number. So an exception was raised here. No, this is the exception that was raised, which is to print not an even number. Parang yung if else statement natin. No? If the assert, okay, so this is a keyword, right? So we assert that the number that was inputted will be divided by 2 and the result should be equal to 0. That's going to be even, right? But what happens if it is odd number? So it will say, so that will be the exception that will be printed. That is not an even number. Let's try to write it again. And now we are using an odd number. No, so let's try 3. 3 is 3 is not an even number. Let's try 4. So 4 definitely is an even number. So it will do the else. Okay. So it will take the reciprocal, which is 0.25. Sorry for that. Okay, so once we enter this, it will tell us that's 0.25. So if we have 10, that's 0.1. Now, that's the reciprocal. 1 over 10 is equal to 0.1. Now also we have try and finally. We already used this a while ago. Okay, so this try statement in Python can have optional finally clause. Okay, and this clause is executed no matter what. It's generally used to release external resources. For example, we may be connected to a remote data center through the network or working with a file or a graphical user interface or GUI. In all of these circumstances, we must clean up the resource before the program comes to a stop, whether it's successfully run or not. And these actions, closing a file, GUI, or disconnecting from network, are performed in the finally clause to guarantee the execution. Here's an example. Okay, so we can use try to open the file, and finally, okay, so this is the try block, which is used to open the file, and for the finally block, we use the fclose function. So this type of construct makes sure that the file is closed even if an exception happens during the program execution. So you can see from here there's no text. Let's try to use sample.txt. Okay, there is also no because we have changed the directory. Hindi na tayo, wala na tayo doon sa directory. So there is an error here. There's an exception raised. Okay, so the file was not found because we are in a different directory. But if we try to change directory, chdir, so we are here, for example here, sorry for that, so we are here in CPE009, so in this directory. Okay, so let's try to use this one. Okay, so you can see here that the codes are this is a syntax error. Anong nangyari because of this? So we can put B. Okay, so para mawala yung error. Okay, so that the slash will be properly handled. I put the B here. Kasi itong wala pa yung B, something happened. Sabi niya Unicode error daw because of the change directory. Okay, sabi dyan, Unicode escape codec can't decode bytes in position 2 to 3. Therefore, it is truncated /uxxxx and escape. So may error. So what do we do para ma-prevent natin error? Just put letter B here to handle the slashing, para ma-handle yung slashing. So ito na nangyari. So wala na siyang error. Now we can also create our custom exceptions. So definitely the term custom means we can make a user-defined custom exception by creating a new class. Pwede tayo mag-create ng new class. So ibig sabihin, it's like object-oriented programming enables us to create an exception class. So we need to derive a class. So kailangan natin mag-derive ng class either directly or indirectly from the built-in exception class. And a typical example is this one. So like example, we have custom error. This is the name of the error that we created. So pwede natin gawin yan. And then we derive it from the exception. Kanina yung exception na to, meron na tayo nito. So this is the base class that we have created. And then we inherited, okay, we derive this exception base class and nilagay natin dito sa custom error, and then we put that here, and then when we try to raise that custom error, it will tell us that that is a custom error. So we can raise here, this is a custom error. Okay, so when we try to run this, it will tell us this is a custom error. So similar like this one, an error occurred. So here we created a user-defined exception called custom error, no? And it inherits from the exception class. And this exception, like other exceptions, can be raised using the raise statement with an optional error message. So in case you are trying to develop a large Python program, it's a very good practice to place all the user-defined exceptions that our program raises in a separate file. Okay, and many standard modules do this. Okay, so this is an example of a user-defined exception in Python. So let's say we define a user-defined exception. So we have an error here. So this is a user-defined error, and we inherited it from the exception base class. So this is the documentation string. That means this is the base class for other exception. Now another class, no, is created here, inheriting the class, no, the class that we have created here, which is error. And another error, value too large, no, inheriting this error also. So you can see that these are derived classes, derived from error, but the error is also derived from exception. Okay, and then we have here a number which is equal to 10. So this is the number that we would need to guess. So from here we have a program that the user will continue to input, no, as long as it is true, it will try to input a number. Okay, if the number inputted is less than the number, it will raise an exception, value too small error. And then if it is too large, value too large error, and then break. Now what will be the exact value too small error? It will print this value is too small, try again. And if the value is too large, it will print this value is too large. Okay, but if you print the correct number, this means this is already false, so this is true. Okay, nakuha natin yung tamang sagot, it will print congratulations, you guessed it correctly. So let's try to do that. As you can see from here, I use some test. Okay, so let's enter a number. It's 1, so it's very small. 2 is still small. 15 is too large. 11 is also too large because it's more than the number. No, but if we try now to guess 10, because that's the 10, okay, it will tell us congratulations, you guessed it correctly. Okay, so we can also customize the exception classes. How? Let's take a look at this example, no? So let's say we have a salary not in range error, no? And this, we inherited the base class exception, no? And this is the documentation string that it will raise an error in the input salary. Okay, what is the salary? The salary that should be inputted, and the message will be an explanation of the error. Here we defined inside the class salary not in range error, we defined an attribute, no, indicating the salary and the message, no. Salary is, of course, is the input of the salary which caused the error, and the message should be salary is not in range of 5,000 to 1,500. Okay, and then we have the salary and the message, and we use the super function. Okay, so this is a super function initializing in this particular class. So we input a salary using this function, integer, and then input, and then enter salary amount. Now we have here an if statement indicating that if not, no, meaning if you inputted between 5,000 and then the salary is less than that 5,000, but it is less than 15,000, if not, no, that means the other way around, no, it will raise the error, no, which means it will tell us that the salary is not in the range of 5,000 to 1,500. So let's try to run this. So for example, naglagay ka lang ng 9,000. So definitely that's that's a proper way to do that, no? Because 9,000 is between 5,000 to 15,000. But if we put, for example, 4,999, so it will tell us that there is a salary not in range error. So this is a custom error, okay? And the salary not in range error is depicted as the salary is not in 5,000 to 15,000 range. Okay? Do you understand the meaning of this? Why we discuss this? So we have overridden the constructor of the exception class, no? So the string method, no, of the exception class is used to display the corresponding message. Okay? So yan yung nakita natin dito. But we can also actually customize the string method, no, by overriding it. Like in this case, nag-override tayo ng string function wherein we return this self.salary and then self.message. So ayan. Okay? So when we try to use that and then we provide 2,500, it will tell us salary not in range error. Alright? So any question regarding our topic for this afternoon? Hindi pa tayo tapos, no? We will just pause for I will try to pause for a break. So let's try to go back here and put something here like I'm putting here GUI introduction. So if there are no questions regarding the topic, let's try to proceed with some simple introduction on graphical user interface. So when you are trying to create a graphical user interface using object-oriented programming, there are plenty of things that we need to import, no? So for example, we will import system, okay, and then from import system, and then from PyQt, this is typically PyQ, capital Q, small t, and then 5. Okay, we will import widgets, Qt widgets. Okay, and you can see kung naka-install na ang PyQt natin, it will automatically type in every word that we are typing as long as naka-install yung PyQt natin. But in case na hindi naka-install ang PyQt natin, you can do installation like install pip install pyqt5, no? And then press execute, no? So you can see here that the program now is installing. So in case na wala pa kayong pyqt5, I already installed it but I'm trying to install it again. Okay, just wait for it to finish, no? Maybe it will take time depending on the speed of your connection. Now while we are waiting, we can type in and na pala. Okay, so that means that it is we are already installed the following packages: the pyqt-zip and then the pyqt. Okay, so wala nang problema. So in case na kailangan yung mag-install, you will have to download these files, 56.9 megabytes for this version of PyQt, which is 5.15, and then the PyQt zip version 12.8.1. okay, 12.8.1. so you will see that the collected passages and if there are no errors here, so you will see that of course there are some errors here, but I think it's related to Spider, no, not in our Jupyter notebook, because I already installed the pyqt5 in Jupyter notebook. Okay, so again, as I am demonstrating, we need to, let's try to make it big. We need to import our system, and then from pyqt5, this is the module, and then this is a submodule we'll try to import, okay, we'll try to import, so let's delete the space here, okay, we'll try to import the main window, okay. So you can see when I press the tab, it automatically type in the appropriate module, okay. Then comma, we will also include to import the application, okay. So from here we select this application, and then from PyQt also, from PyQt5, okay, of the module Qt GUI, okay, we will try to import the Q icon, okay, and then we will create a class. No, let's create a class. So this will be our main window. So Q main window, okay. So we are using this, no, we are using this to import here. We will try to import it here, okay, and then that's our class. So let's try to create something inside. So we will define our initialization double underscore init, okay, init class to self, and then we will use a super function here, okay, super function of the init, okay. So double na, let's try to delete that, and then the function, okay. So this means that we are trying to initialize the main window. So let's put a comment here. So we are trying to initialize the main window like in the previous one, okay. So here we try to put our window, okay. So our window will be equal to the Q. This is an instance of our class, and then we call the self.title, which is equal to our first OOP GUI, okay. Then afterwards we call the self.init UI, you know, init UI, okay, function. So let's create another one. So from here you will see the appropriate indentation. You have to follow that. So another one would be to define the init function, no? Init UI function. So we will define this here, and we will put inside the self, okay, and then we will try to include our window, set window. Let's try to put window, set window, okay, set window title, okay, this one, and the title will be self.title. So ang magiging title ng window natin is this one, no, self.title, which is first OOP GUI, okay. So another one is to designate the geometry, no, the shape of the window, okay, and the shape of the window will be 200 by 200 by 300 by 300. So these are the dimensions, no? Medyo maliit lang yung window na gagawin natin. Aside from that, we will also create a window icon. Actually, gagawa sana tayo ng icon, kaso wala tayong icon dito. So let's leave that. Okay, Actually, we can create an icon here, no? For example, self dot set window, window title, actually window icon, set window icon. Okay, and then we will use the function q icon and the name of the file. Okay, for example, we have pythonico.icon. Okay, so for example, we have an image here. We will be using it for our icon, no? In a certain window you can use an icon, okay, an image, no? You can put an image here to replace this, okay, and then you can use it to show it. Okay, now inside here, in the last one, we will have if the name, okay, will be equal to the main, okay, main program, then the app will be equal to the application, and then sys, that's why we use the system, no, sys.argv, no, this one is used to display the and then we have the main program will be equal to our application. Okay, so yan, dito sa app na to, and then system.exit, okay, and then app.execute. Okay, so when we try to execute this one, okay, so there is an error, so too much error here, the self here is not defined, sabi niya. So saan nakaturo yung error? Number 5. Okay, so there is an error here for our class q icon, import icon. So what seems to be the problem here? So let us just wait. Okay, let's try to see the error. Okay, so what will be the error? The error will be, okay, so let's try to execute it once more. Okay, yan, nag-execute na siya, wala na siyang error. So from here we imported the system and the Q main window and the Q application as well as the icon. Okay, and then we created our title and we initialized the init UI. No? The init UI is our window. Okay, so from here we executed this, no, and we showed that ito yung kaninang mali before, no, dapat pala nandito siya sa loob ng init UI. Okay, and then we executed. So ano ngayon ang magiging output nito? The output will be this one, no. So this is the first OOPG UI, no. So you can see from here, this is the first OOPG UI. Dapat dito mapupunta yung pythonico.ico. Okay, so if you have an image, no, okay, so let me have an image here. I will copy some pictures here. So let's say ito yung picture na gagamitin ko. Kunyari yan yung icon ko. So I can put that in my CPE009 and paste it here, and then cpe.jpg, no. So ito yung file natin, cpe.jpg. So babaguhin ko yung code. I'm gonna put it here and I will change the name of the file, which is cpe.jpg. let's see kung magra-run siya ng properly, no? So let's try to close this one and let's try to run this one again, okay? And then okay, so nag-restart yung kernel niya, namatay siya. Let's try to restart once again. Maybe hindi niya na-handle yung cpe.jpg. Okay na siya. So you can see, ayan, nag-run na siya, no? And from here, you will see the picture, no, that I placed, no, which is my face. So ganito ginagawa yung icon. Okay? So very simple. Pag nag-create tayo ng window, we just create a class. Okay? And then we define the attributes. So that the following are the attributes. This is for the title, and then this is for the dimensions, and as well as putting some icons. Okay? And this is just to call, no? This is just to call kasi pag tinanggal natin to, it will not run properly. Okay? So this is just to call the window that we have created. Now, for example, if we want to create a text, no? If we want to create a text, so we can just copy this one. So this is one. This one is let's try to close this one so that I can put something here. So this one is used to create your first OOP GUI. Okay? So another one, so nakopy na natin siya, pwede nating i-paste dito. This one naman, let's create some text, no? Include text. Paano natin lalagyan ng text to? It's basically the same pa rin. Import natin yung Q widgets. Okay? Import natin yung Q main window, yung Q application, pero dadagdagan natin siya this time ng Q widget. Dagdagan natin siya ng Q widget. Yan. Okay? And after that, dadagdagan natin siya ng Q push button. Gawa tayo ng button. And then Q line edit. No, this one. Q line edit. So paliitin natin siya para medyo makita nyo. Yan, Q line edit. Okay, so ayan na yung ginawa natin. Okay? So babaguhin natin yan. So ganun pa rin. We define it, the super, no, the first, and then the title is our first OOP GUI. We're still calling the self.init UI, but this time lalagyan natin siya ng x-axis. So equate natin siya sa 200. Ito yung gagawin nating Q line edit. Mamaya makikita nyo kung ano result nito. Self.x, self.y is equal to 200 also. And then yung width niya, okay, yung width niya will be equal to, mali ang spelling, will be equal to 300, and the height will be equal to 300 also. So yan lang yung dinagdag natin, itong apat na to here, no? From the init, okay, so ganun pa rin, meron tayong ganyan, but this time pwede na natin burahin to. Okay, pwede na natin burahin tong ano na to, tong title, itong geometry. So ang instead na ito yung geometry natin, ang gagawin natin, babaguhin natin to. Pwede natin ilagay dito yung self.x, okay, self.y, self.width, and self.height. So make sure tama yung spelling natin, no? Otherwise magkakaroon ng syntax error. So basically meron pa rin tayong icon, yung pa rin yung icon natin, yung CPE, but we can add another more here so that we can create a text box. Now let's create a text box here. Okay, so lagay natin dito self.textbox is equal to, tawagin natin si Q line edit. Okay, Q line edit sa self, and then self.textbox Okay, that move. Okay, let's try to hide this. And then lagay natin sa loob yung dimension na 20 by 20. Yan yung size ng box natin. And then if resize, no? Text box that resize, pwede natin siyang i-resize 150 by 20. And then lagyan natin ng text sa loob ng text box. Okay? So set text. Anong lalagay natin sa loob? For example, set this text value. Yan. Okay? And then self.show, basically the same. So ano kaya magiging result nito, no? When we are trying to adding some text in our GUI. So let's run this. So ayan, nag-run na siya. So you can see now that when we try to increase the size of the window, hindi nagbabago yung ating text box. So we can delete also something here, no? We can delete the, because it will be used to help the user what should be written here, no? For example, you can write here the username or the password, etc., etc. So that's how we can add text. Now how can we add, let's try to copy this. Now for our next program, we will write, of course we need to close this. Okay, let's try to paste this, and then I will now include labels. Okay, basically ano naman yung sa label natin? Basically ganun pa rin. Ito pa rin yung ini-import natin. Dadagdagan lang natin siya ng Q label dito sa dulo, no? Q label. Yan. Okay. So for the Q label, and then of course hindi pa natin ginamit yung push button, mamaya magagamit natin yan, pero nilagay na natin siya. Basically we still have that, and ganyan pa rin yung ating dimension. Okay, same dimensions, same init UI, but this time gagawa tayo ng text box label, no? Gawan natin ng label yung text box na ginawa natin. So here meron tayong create a text box, but this time gawa tayo ng text box label. Okay, so medyo kailangan lagyan natin to ng self.textbox label, LBL. Okay, make sure tama yung spelling natin, and we call the function QLabel, and inside that we can call, for example, this is a text box. Okay, and then we call the self. Okay, and then magdagdag tayo ng self.textbox label. Okay, kulang ng T, that move. Okay, 30 and 25. So it will depend on the X and Y coordinates, no? Whether saan nyo lalagay yung inyong program o inyong label. Okay, so when we try to execute this, what will happen? So ayun, nakita nyo napunta siya sa baba, kaya lang hindi siya masyadong nakaayos, no? So pwede natin siyang ilagay so medyo babaguhin natin yung 25 na to, yung y-axis natin. Tama na yung no? Tama na yung x-axis niya. Pero babaguhin natin ng konti yung ating y-axis. Yan. So, ayan, namatay na naman yung kernel. It will happen from time to time. But definitely, pwede naman nating i-run ulit. Okay? So, ayan na. Ay, ganun pa rin. Hindi nagbago yung... because hindi natin binago pala to. Okay? So, that nabago natin to. Baguhin natin to. Let's try to close this once again. And then, should be 30. Okay? And let's try to run it again. Of course, nakita nyo namatay na naman. Let's try to do it again. So from time to time, your kernel might die while testing, but definitely you just want to restart, no, your kernel. No, ayan, medyo bumaba na yung text box natin, bumagay na, pero hindi pa rin, no. Medyo lagyan natin ng konting 35. Okay, and then run it again. Yan, namatay na naman. Let's try to restart the kernel and then run it again para makita natin na okay na yung text box natin. No? So now you know how to create a Q label for your text box. Okay? Now for the buttons, no, an example of buttons, for example, if you want to create a button, you can see here that there is an exception. Okay? Nag-exit na siya kasi pinatay ko na yung application natin. So let's try to create a push button, no? So basically ito pa rin gagamitin natin, hindi natin siya babaguhin. Okay? How do we do the button? So let's try to create the buttons here, no? So actually we can create the buttons here. So we can create the button self dot buttons. Okay. Okay, mali. Dapat small letter lang, button. Okay, button self.button will be equal to Q. Import na natin yung push button natin. Yan, push button, and then you can say something like click me. Okay, click me. And then we'll add another detail here, like click button that set. Okay, the tooltip. You know the tooltip. The tooltip is used whenever you are hovering a mouse. For example, no, you can use it to use as a for example, you can say you have hovered over me. Okay, so makikita nyo mamaya yung tooltip na yan ginagamit sa mga window, no, for the tooltip, no, and then we can use the self.button that move. So let's put it in X, let's say X-axis is 100 and the we put it in 80. Okay. Okay, and then yeah, I think basically yan na yung ano natin, buttons natin. So let's try to run this kung magra-run siya. Okay, so hindi pa rin siya nag-run properly. Yan, namatay ulit. Okay? Okay, wala pa rin yung ano natin. Wala pa yung ano natin. Something is missing here. So let me just copy the button file. So actually ito yon. We can just put it here. Share ko lang para makita nyo. Okay, so this is the file. So let's try to run this para makita nyo yung button. Yan na yung button natin. Ayan, click me. So when you hovered your mouse here, you will see you've hovered over me, sabi niya, no. So this is the file still, no. Hindi naman tayo nagbago, nagdagdag lang tayo ng konti para sa Q push button. Set tayo ng tooltip and then the self button that move. Okay, and this is the result of doing that, no. Of course there may be some problems associated with it. Okay, so for now, this is just a simple introduction. I'm going to publish this notebook in your module, and I hope that you have learned from simple introduction to GUI. If you have some questions regarding the topics that we have discussed, you are free to use the public chat, or you can use your microphone to ask me.